Hello friends, today is Wednesday, July 6th, and in today's video I'd like to quickly summarize news from Ukraine and Russia as they relate to the special military operation and discuss what it means in a short term and long term for the region and America. In order to keep this video short, I'll gloss over many details. If you would like me to make a video focusing on some of these details, leave a comment down below. Don't forget to hit a like button on this video and subscribe to my channel for more content on a variety of topics. Thanks. Now, let's get going. First, I'll cover the situation on the front lines. This past weekend, while America was getting ready to celebrate its independence from British colonial rule, the Allied forces of Russian military and the militias of Luhansk and Donetsk People's Republics have captured the city of Lysychansk, a key point in armed forces of Ukraine defense. They have done so in just a matter of a few days, inflicting heavy casualties on the AFU in a process. The city was taken with minimal damage to residential and industrial areas, and videos of local residents greeting the Allied troops as liberators appeared on many Russian news channels and telegram channels. The indisputable success was attributed to a change of tactics employed by the Allied forces. They learned that in order to minimize destruction, they needed to spread the defenders' defensive lines as wide as possible and to lure them into less densely populated outskirts of the city in order to weaken their ability to resist advances, which otherwise would be far more dangerous if the defenders could remain within relative safety of heavily fortified positions. Since the city of Lysychansk was captured, President Putin awarded the two commanders of the Allied forces medals for heroism and ordered a short operational pause in the area in order for the troops to rest before moving farther east. This didn't mean a ceasefire, of course, even though some Ukrainian officials have attempted to portray it in this way. On the contrary, Russian high-precision missiles continued to hit infrastructure targets all over Ukraine every night, destroying ammo depots and training facilities. Ukrainians, for their part, having nothing better to do, intensified the shelling and rocket attacks on civilian areas on Monday and Tuesday this week. 155mm artillery shells fired from Western-supplied cannons and rockets fired by the much lauded by the Western media HIMARS systems hit residential areas in Donetsk, killing several civilians, including a 10-year-old girl, and managed to reach targets on the other side of the Russian border. Hitting civilian targets is nothing new for the armed forces of Ukraine. However, this time, the Western media actually reported it. Have your jaws dropped to the floor yet? Mine certainly has. When I read a headline on CNN website which described attacks on Donetsk as having been done by AFU. This reporting represents what appears to me a fundamental shift in a way the conflict in Ukraine is covered by the mainstream media in America and Europe. Another example would be this Twitter thread by a Politico reporter on the heavy losses within Ukrainian military. And this sad tweet, which alleges that Ukraine is running out of body bags. And these two stories, which came out on Monday and Tuesday. Ukraine is restricting the movement of citizens within its own borders, asking that in order to travel from one region to another, a person must get clearance from a recruitment center. The implication is that once you show up at the recruitment center, the only place you'll be traveling is a front line. And this other news is the expansion of draftees to include women. Taken together, the lack of body bags, the draconian travel restrictions that essentially bring back serfdom in Ukraine, that is, the inability to leave one's land without the ruler's permission, and the inclusion of women into the draft points to the fact that the armed forces of Ukraine are suffering horrendous losses. Their ranks are being decimated, and there is very little all this human sacrificing can do to stop the advance of the Allied troops. This is the horror of war, the terrible toll it takes on Ukrainian people. But before you rush to blame the Russians for this, consider that it is Ukraine that has started this in April 2014 when Turchinov, an acting president replacing the then recently deposed Yanukovych, ordered an anti-terrorist operation in eastern Ukraine that over its 8-year span killed 14,000 soldiers and civilians. We can disagree about who's responsible for the political turmoil that had engulfed the country then, but the fact remains that the escalation of force had been taken by Ukraine itself. In the following years, the Ukrainian government had several opportunities to stop the civil war, and its Western partners had several opportunities to pressure Ukraine to do so, for example, by imposing sanctions. Yet, no sincere effort was made by either side, and the current situation there is simply a logical conclusion of the years of failure by the Ukrainian politicians to resolve its internal conflict peacefully. And in economic news relating to the conflict, German newspapers have published bleak predictions for the German economy in the coming months. It seems that its dependency on the Russian energy exports was far greater than the previous estimates, and the recession enveloping the German economy is just one ripple in a tidal wave of the rapidly rising inflation tsunami about to swallow the consumer economies of the EU and US. Sadly, the leadership of these liberal democracies is doing very little to address the crisis. According to some economists, there is little to be done. Inflation caused by the quantitative easing, essentially printing of fiat currency, can only be addressed either by increasing taxation, which would completely wreck the middle class in Europe and the US, or by rising key interest rates. But the raising of rates to the levels necessary to contain inflation is impossible, given the monstrous external debts that West holds. It would bankrupt America, for example, whose external debt is in the tens of trillions of dollars. Meanwhile, the Fed's balance sheet is a mere 7 trillion, less than a third of what America owns. To raise interest rate would mean the interest payments each year would surpass the entire American budget. America is broke. And unlike previous recessions, there is no printing money to get out of this one. Please look forward to austerity measures being imposed in the near future, possible as soon as the election smoke clears in November and Republicans take control of Congress and Senate. I'm sure they will cut social benefits and service to ribbons. Of course, they don't have to do that in order to strengthen the bloated American budget. They could instead cut spending on security agencies, military, and other programs connected to our military-industrial complex. But if you know anything about our politicians here in America, you can bet that they won't upset the entities who finance their campaigns. Instead, they'll throw us, the taxpayers, the poor and the middle class, under the overinflated tires of the recession bus. Hey, I am sorry I'm being pessimistic in my outlook. It's summer here in the US. Enjoy it. Here's a bit of happy news to cheer you up. This one comes from the USA Today. Tech Fairy fixes computers and distributes them to those in need. Fred Clark gives new life to old computers. Known as the Tech Fairy, this technician from Florida puts out a call on next door and collects computers in need of repair. Once fixed, they are given to people who need them, hopefully improving their lives, as Craig tells USA Today. So far, he has distributed 430 repaired computers. Clark said he doesn't want to be the only tech fairy around and would love it if more people join him in fixing up old computers. You'll be amazed by the results that you get, he said. Soon, Clark will be able to rejoice as many more people will need all sorts of repairs, and not just computers, but common household items as well, as prices continue to rise and interest rates will make it impossible to borrow money to purchase replacements. Regardless, reading about Craig's good work put a smile on my otherwise dour face. I hope this little ray of sunshine also brightens your day. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.